The stars had never looked so peaceful. Captain Doyen Park stood at the observation window of Station Varus, watching the slow dance of distant suns. Behind him, the sounds of families filled the diplomatic hall. Children laughed. Parents talked. Scientists shared discoveries. This was supposed to be a day of hope. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for 42 years. They were still newcomers among races that had traveled between stars for thousands of centuries. The 12 elder races looked at humans the way adults look at children who speak too loudly. Useful for labor. Good for fighting wars. But not worthy of respect. Not yet. Doyen turned from the window. His eyes found Dr. Unicong across the crowded hall. She was showing alien children how human hearts worked, using a small hologram that pulsed with light. The alien children watched with wide eyes. Their parents watched too, though their faces showed less wonder and more suspicion. 3,000 humans had come to Station Varus. Diplomats, scientists, teachers, families. The council had invited them all for what they called integration discussions. For decades of serving the council without voting rights, humanity would finally have a voice. At least that was what the invitation promised. Dojan felt something cold in his stomach. He had been a soldier before he became a diplomat. Soldiers learned to trust that cold feeling. It had kept him alive through 3 wars. Now it whispered to him that something was wrong. He looked around the hall more carefully. The council's security guards had doubled since morning. They stood at every door, their weapons not quite pointed at the crowd, but not quite lowered either. The alien dignitaries who had greeted them yesterday were gone. Only guards remained. Doyen began walking toward Yuna. He moved slowly so he would not cause alarm. His hand found his communicator. His thumb pressed the emergency channel to Earth. Whatever happened next, someone would know. Counselor Veth entered the hall. The Rethian leader was ancient even by alien standards. His gray skin hung loose on his tall frame. His eyes were black pools that reflected no light. He was the most powerful being in the galaxy. When he spoke, civilizations listened. He did not speak now. He simply raised one thin hand. The guards opened fire. Doyen threw himself behind a pillar as plasma bolts screamed through the air. The sounds that followed would haunt the galaxy forever. Screams. So many screams. Children crying for parents. Parents crying for children. The wet sounds of bodies falling. He saw Yuna dive behind an overturned table. Their eyes met across the chaos. She was alive. For now, Doyen's training took over. He could not save everyone. He could not save anyone. But he could make sure the galaxy knew what happened here. His fingers flew across his communicator. He activated the emergency beacon. He opened a channel to every human ship, every human colony, every human ear that could listen. A plasma bolt hit the pillar above him. Pieces of hot metal rained down. He spoke into the communicator. His voice was steady. A soldier's voice. "This is Captain Doyen Park at Station Varus. The Council has opened fire on the human delegation. They are killing everyone. Men, women, children. This is not a battle. This is a massacre." Another bolt. Closer this time. "I am transmitting visual data from all station cameras. Let the galaxy see what the Council has done. Let humanity see." He looked out from behind the pillar. The hall had become a slaughterhouse. Bodies covered the floor. The guards moved through them, firing at anything that still moved. The alien dignitaries stood at the edges, watching. Some looked away. Most did not. Counselor Veth had not moved. His hand was still raised. His black eyes watched the killing with no expression at all. Doyen felt a plasma bolt hit his shoulder. The pain was enormous, but distant somehow. He had been shot before. He knew he was dying. He did not have much time. He lifted the communicator one last time. "They have killed us. All of us. Remember Varus." The transmission ended. Across the hall, Unicong crawled through pools of blood. She had seen Doyen fall. She had seen hundreds fall. The guards were moving closer, checking bodies, firing again at anyone who breathed. She needed to hide. She needed to survive. Someone had to tell the full story. She found a medical pod near the wall. It was designed for emergency treatment of wounded patients. She climbed inside and sealed the door. Through the small window, she could see the guards passing by. They did not notice her. The pod looked empty from outside. She activated her personal recorder. Her hands shook, but her voice did not. My name is Dr. Unikong. I am a xenobiologist with the Human Diplomatic Mission. I am recording everything I see. The Council has murdered 3,000 innocent people. I do not know why. I do not know if I will survive. But I will record until I cannot record anymore. She watched through the window as the guards finished their work. She watched as Counselor Veth finally lowered his hand. She watched as he turned and walked away without looking back. Hours passed. The station grew quiet. The guards left. Only the dead remained. Eunice stayed in the pod. She recorded the silence. She recorded the bodies. She recorded the blood that covered the floor of what was supposed to be a hall of peace. 7 minutes after Doyan's transmission, the message reached Earth. It traveled at the speed of light through quantum relays, touching every human colony along the way. Billions of humans heard the same words at almost the same moment. They have killed us. Remember Varys. On Earth, Admiral Taeho Shin received the message in his command center. He was an old man with gray hair and hard eyes. He had fought in wars that most humans had forgotten. He had seen terrible things, but he had never felt what he felt now. He played the visual data that came with the message. He watched families die. He watched children fall. He watched Counselor Veth raise his hand like a god, deciding who would live and who would die. Taeho stood slowly. His officers watched him. They waited for orders. They waited for words of anger or grief, but Taeho said nothing. He simply walked to his private quarters and closed the door. For 1 hour, no one heard anything from inside. When he emerged, his face was calm. His eyes were dry, but something had changed in them. Something cold and patient, and very, very dangerous. Contact General O, he said. Tell her to activate everything. Tell her the time for secrets is over. His officer nodded. What message should I send to the Council, Admiral? Taeho looked at the screen where the massacre footage still played on loop. 3,000 bodies. 3,000 lives ended by a raised hand. No message, he said. Let them wonder. Let them wait. Let them think they have one. He turned away from the screen. The dead will have their answer, but not today. Across human space, the same cold silence fell. No demands. No threats. No tears broadcast for alien eyes to see. Only silence. And in that silence, something began to wake. 3 days passed. The galaxy waited for humanity to respond. They waited for angry transmissions. They waited for demands for justice. They waited for the crying and begging that always came from weaker species. When they were hurt by stronger ones, nothing came. The Council grew confident. Counselor Veth addressed the 12 elder races with satisfaction in his ancient voice. The human problem has been solved, he said. They now understand their place. They will return to their labor. They will forget their dreams of equality. Fear is the greatest teacher. The other counselors nodded. They had worried about humanity for years. Humans bred too fast. They adapted too quickly. They asked too many questions. Now that worry was over. The massacre at Varys had sent a clear message. Know your place or die. Trade routes hummed with activity. Alien merchants sold alien goods. The elder races went back to their ancient routines. Station Varys was cleaned. The bodies were burned. The blood was washed away. In a few years, no one would remember what happened there, or so they believed. On Earth, in a bunker buried deep beneath mountains that had no name on any map, General Mingio stood before a wall of screens. Each screen showed a different human colony. Each colony showed the same thing: factories working at full capacity. Ships being built. Weapons being loaded. Soldiers training. Minji was a small woman with short gray hair. She had a gentle face that made people think she was kind. She was kind. But she was also something else, something that the council had never seen. She was patient. Report, she said. An officer stepped forward. All 17 colonies are ready, General. The United Government has given you full control of all military assets. Every faction has agreed. Every nation has submitted. Minji nodded. This was the part that would have seemed impossible 3 days ago. Humanity had always been divided. Nations fought nations. Corporations fought corporations. Religions fought religions. The Council had counted on this division. They believed humans would argue about how to respond to Varys. They believed the arguing would last for years. They were wrong. Something strange had happened in those 3 days. The footage from Varys had spread to every human eye. Every human had seen the children die. Every human had seen Counselor Veth raise his hand. And every human had felt something ancient wake up inside them. Old enemies looked at each other and saw brothers. Old grudges turned to ash. For the first time in human history, entire species moved with one mind and one purpose. President Sira Lim had spoken to all of humanity on the second day. She stood alone on a simple stage with no flags behind her and no symbols of any nation. Just a woman speaking to her species. They believed we were weak because we sought peace, she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried to every ear. They believed we were divided because we debated. They were wrong. We remember our history. We remember what happens when we unite. We remember what we do to those who slaughter our innocent. She paused. The entire species held its breath. We will not scream. We will not beg. We will not negotiate. We will simply remember. And we will answer. The broadcast ended. No one spoke of it again. There was no need. Every human understood. Now on the third day, General Mingio activated her greatest secret. Show me, Erebus, she said. The screens changed. They showed ships. Thousands of ships. But these were not like any ships the Council had ever seen. They were black and sleek and covered with weapons that had no names in any alien language. Engineer Hyunwoo Beek stepped forward. He was young for his position. His hair was messy, and his uniform was never quite right. But his mind had designed these ships. His hands had built the weapons they carried. Erebus's fleet is ready, General, he said. 12,000 ships. Each one carrying weapons we developed, but never used. The Council thinks they know human military technology. They know nothing. We kept our real weapons hidden. Why? Mingi asked. She knew the answer. But she wanted Hyunwoo to say it. She wanted the room to hear, because we hoped we would never need them, Hyunwoo said. Because we wanted peace. Because we thought if we showed the Council our true strength, they would fear us even more. They would attack us before we were ready. He paused. We were trying to protect them from themselves. Minji nodded slowly. Humans had always been different from the elder races. The aliens conquered because they could. They killed because it was efficient. They saw the universe as a competition where only the strong deserved to survive. Humans had learned a different lesson. They had learned it through thousands of years of war against each other. They had learned that true strength was not about killing. It was about choosing not to kill when you could. But they had also learned another lesson. When someone killed your innocent, you answered completely. You answered so thoroughly that no one would ever make the same mistake again. In a small room on another continent, a young soldier named Ji Woo Han sat alone. He had not slept since the transmission from Varys. He could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his mother's face, his father's face, his little sister's face. They had all been at Station Varys. They had gone as part of a cultural exchange. His mother was a teacher. His father was a musician. His sister was 8 years old and wanted to be a doctor. Now they were Ash. Giwoo looked at the enlistment form on his desk. He had already signed it. Tomorrow, he would join the military. He would train harder than anyone. He would become stronger than anyone. And when the time came, he would find the people who killed his family. Not for revenge. Revenge was hot and angry and blind. This was something colder. This was a promise he made to the ghosts that followed him everywhere. I will find them. I will make them understand what they did. And I will make sure no one ever does it again. He put on his uniform and walked out into the night. Across human space, thousands of others did the same. Scientists who had never held weapons learned to shoot. Artists who had never known violence trained their bodies for war. Teachers who had taught peace now taught tactics. The council thought they had killed humanity's spirit. They had done the opposite. They had given humanity something it had never had before. A single enemy, a single purpose, a single voice that spoke with 8 billion mouths. On the morning of the 4th day, Admiral Taiho Shin stood on the bridge of his flagship. The Erebus fleet surrounded him like a cloud of black wasps. Every ship was crewed. Every weapon was loaded. Every soldier was ready. Admiral, his communications officer, said. "We are receiving a signal from General O." Taiho nodded. "Put it through." Minji's face appeared on the screen. Behind her, Taiho could see President Sira Lim standing quietly. Admiral Shin Mingi said, "You have command of the first wave. Your orders are simple. Strike all 12 Council homeworlds simultaneously. Military targets only. No civilians. We are not them." "Understood, General. One more thing." Minji's eyes were hard, but her voice carried something like sorrow. "I want you to broadcast a message before you strike. I want the Council to know why this is happening. I want them to understand that they did this to themselves." "What message, General?" Minji looked at President Lim. The president stepped forward. 7 words, Sira Lim said. "We gave you peace. Now take war." The transmission ended. Taiho turned to his crew. They were young and old, men and women, from every nation and every faith that humanity had ever known. They looked at him with eyes that held no fear. "Only purpose." "All ships," Taiho said. "Begin jump sequence. We have debts to pay." The fleet moved, and across the galaxy, the silence finally broke. Counselor Veth was drinking wine when the lights went out. He sat in his private chamber on the Raytheon homeworld, surrounded by ancient art and older wealth. His cup was made from crystal that had taken 1,000 years to grow. His chair was carved from wood that came from a tree that no longer existed. He was comfortable. He was powerful. He was untouchable. The lights flickered once, then died. Veth set down his cup. "Guards," he called. No answer came. He reached for his communicator. The screen was dark. Dead. Every screen in his chamber was dead. Across the galaxy, the same thing happened at the same moment. Every council communication channel went silent. Every broadcast stopped. Every screen turned to black. For 17 seconds, the 12 elder races existed in complete darkness. Then the screens came back. A human face appeared. It was a woman. She was battered and bruised. Her clothes were torn, but her eyes were steady, and her voice did not shake. "My name is Dr. Unicong," she said. 4 days ago, I was at Station Varus. I watched the Council murder 3,000 innocent humans. I recorded everything. Now you will watch too." The footage began. Counselor Veth watched himself raise his hand. He watched the guards open fire. He watched bodies fall and blood spread across the floor. He watched children try to run and fail. He watched parents try to shield their young and die trying. The footage played on every screen on every world of every council race. Billions of aliens saw what their leaders had done. Some turned away. Some cried. Some felt nothing at all. When the footage ended, another face appeared. This one was hard and cold. General Minjio looked into the camera as if she could see through it to every alien eye. "We gave you peace," she said. "Now take war." The screens went dark again. 17 seconds later, the first explosions began. Commander Sun Woo Choi led the assault on the Raytheon homeworld. His fleet appeared out of nowhere, jumping in from points that the Council's sensors never detected. Before the alien defense platforms could aim their weapons, they were already burning. "Target the orbital shipyard," Sun Woo ordered. His voice was calm. He had practiced this attack 1,000 times in simulation. Now, it was real. Leave the civilian stations alone. We hit military targets only. The ships moved like dancers. They struck with precision that the Council had never seen. Raytheon defense ships launched to meet them, but they were too slow, too old, too surprised. Human weapons cut through their shields like paper. In 1 hour, the Raytheon orbital military infrastructure was gone. Shipyards that had built warships for 10,000 years became clouds of burning metal. Fuel depots that could have supplied a fleet for centuries exploded in flowers of fire. Defense platforms that had protected this world since before humans learned to write went silent forever. On the surface, Counselor Veth watched through his window. The sky was full of falling stars. Each star was a piece of his power dying. His communicator finally came back to life. Other counselors were screaming. The same thing was happening to every council world. 12 simultaneous attacks. 12 fleets appearing from nowhere. 12 homeworlds losing their military infrastructure in a single coordinated strike. How? One counselor screamed. How did they have this many ships? How did they hide them? How did they know where to strike? No one had an answer. In the ruins of an alien shipyard, Specialist Narration sat at her communications console. She was young, barely 20. She had joined the military 6 months ago, right after finishing her engineering degree. She had never expected to see real combat. Now she was broadcasting humanity's declaration of war across the entire galaxy. "This is the United Human Fleet," she said. Her voice went to every receiver that could hear it. 4 days ago, the Galactic Council murdered 3,000 innocent humans at Station Varus. Men, women, children, diplomats who came seeking peace. Today we answer, she paused to let the words sink in. We do not want your civilians. We do not want your cities. We do not want genocide. We want justice. Surrender those who ordered the massacre, and this ends. Protect them, and this continues. She ended the transmission. Across the galaxy, Council military commanders tried to organize a response, but their communications were scrambled. Their fleets were scattered. Their command structures had been built for slow, careful wars against enemies who followed predictable rules. Humans did not follow rules, Commander. Sun Wu Choi led his fleet to Station Varus. The Council had cleaned the station. They had burned the bodies and washed the blood and returned it to normal operation. They thought no one would remember what happened there. They were wrong. Sun Wu's ships surrounded the station. His weapons were charged. His finger was on the firing button. He could destroy it with a single command, but that was not his mission. All security forces on Station Varus, he broadcast. You have 1 hour to evacuate. Take your weapons. Take your ships. Leave. This station now belongs to humanity. It is no longer a place of commerce. It is a memorial. Alien guards did not argue. They had seen what human ships could do. They left in anything that could fly. When the station was empty, Sun Wu boarded it with a small team. They walked through halls that had been cleaned, but still carried ghosts. They found the place where Captain Doyen Park had died. They found the pillar he had hidden behind. They found the marks of plasma bolts on the walls. Sun Wu knelt on the floor. He placed his hand on the spot where Doyen's blood had been. The cleaners had done their work well. There was no stain. But Sun Wu could feel it somehow. He could feel the moment when a good man died trying to save his people. We remember, Sun Wu whispered. We will always remember. He stood and activated his communicator. His message went to every ship in the fleet. Station Varus is now human territory. No alien ship may approach within 1 light year. Any who try will join the remembered. Ji Wuhan heard the message in the crew quarters of a transport ship. He was heading to his first assignment. His training had been short and intense, but the military needed every soldier they could get. He was not special. He was just one of millions who had enlisted in the past 4 days. But he had a purpose that burned brighter than most. He looked at a small photograph in his hand. His mother, his father, his sister, they were smiling in the picture. It was taken at a park near their home on the day before they left for Station Varus. His sister was holding a flower. His mother was laughing at something his father had said. They did not know they were about to die. Ji-woo put the photograph away. He would carry it with him through everything that came next. It would remind him why he was fighting. It would keep him focused when others lost their way. He was not fighting for revenge. Revenge was personal and small. He was fighting for something larger. He was fighting so that no human family would ever smile for a photograph and then die at alien hands. He was fighting so that the galaxy would learn a simple lesson. Human life has value. Human blood has a price. And when you pay that price, you pay it completely. On the Raytheon homeworld, Counselor Veth watched the last of his orbital defenses fall. His communicator buzzed with desperate messages from other council members. They wanted to negotiate. They wanted to offer reparations. They wanted to make it stop. Veth said nothing. He simply watched the sky and thought about what he had done. He had raised his hand. He had ordered the death of 3,000 innocents. He had thought it was the smart move. The efficient move. The move that would keep humanity in its place forever. He had been wrong. And now, for the first time in his ancient life, Counselor Veth felt something he had never felt before. Fear. 6 months after the first strike, the galaxy looked very different. The Council's power was broken. Their fleets were scattered across 1,000 systems, hiding from human ships that seemed to be everywhere at once. Their communication networks were in ruins. Their supply lines were cut. Their populations lived in fear, but the humans did not stop. Admiral Taiho Shin stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying maps that showed the progress of the war. Red marks covered the display. Each mark was a military target that had been destroyed. 3,000 marks in total, one for every human who died at Varys. They called it the doctrine of memory. For every innocent killed, one enemy installation would fall. Not cities. Not homes. Only military targets. Only bases and shipyards and weapons factories. The humans were not trying to commit genocide. They were sending a message. We remember each one. Each life had value. Each death has an answer. Taiho looked tired. He had not slept properly in months. None of them had. But there was work to do. The doctrine demanded completion. Admiral, his tactical officer said, "We have located the Vethrian fleet. They are hiding in the narrow belt behind the third moon of Karas." Taiho nodded. The Vethrians were Counselor Veth's personal military force. Elite soldiers from his homeworld. They had been hunting them for weeks. "Send Commander Han's strike team," Taiho said. "Tell them we want prisoners, not corpses. The trial needs witnesses." Ji-woo Han received the orders in the cargo hold of a small stealth ship. He was not the same young man who had enlisted 6 months ago. Combat had changed him. Loss had hardened him. He was quieter now. More focused. The other soldiers in his team called him the Ghost. Because of how silently he moved and how little he spoke, he gathered his team. 12 soldiers. Each one had lost family at Varys. Each one carried that loss like a weight that made them stronger instead of breaking them. "Mission is simple," Ji-woo said. His voice was flat and calm. "Capture Vethrian commanders. They voted for the massacre. They need to stand trial. Kill only if necessary." One of his soldiers raised a hand. "What if they resist?" "They will resist. Make them stop resisting, but keep them alive." Ji-woo paused. "Dead enemies become martyrs. Living enemies become examples." Strike team moved. Across the galaxy, Neptune moon sat in an intelligence center, buried deep beneath Earth's surface. Screens covered every wall, showing data from 1,000 sources. Spy satellites. Intercepted communications. Reports from human agents placed inside Council space. She was hunting one target above all others. Counselor Veth, the old Raytheon, had disappeared after the first human strikes. His homeworld was surrounded by human ships, but he was not there. His personal fleet had been destroyed, but he had not been aboard. He was hiding somewhere, protected by loyal servants who would rather die than give him up. Unda did not mind the challenge. She had been an intelligence officer for 20 years. She had found hiding targets before. She would find this one too. Report, she said. Her assistant pulled up new data. We intercepted a communication from the Outer Reach. Someone is gathering Council loyalists. The message used old Raytheon codes. Yunji leaned forward. Veth's codes. We believe so. He is building something. An alliance, maybe. Or an army. Where in the Outer Reach? Unknown. The signal bounced through 17 relay stations before we caught it. Yunji thought for a moment. 17 relays. That was careful. That was paranoid. That was exactly what someone like Veth would do.
How?
Begin tracing. Use everything we have. I want that signal's origin within 48 hours. On a dead moon at the edge of known space, Counselor Veth addressed his followers. They were the last true believers. Military commanders who had escaped human vengeance, politicians who had supported the massacre, soldiers who remained loyal to the old ways. There were not many, maybe 10,000 in total. But Veth believed it was enough. The humans think they have one, he said. His ancient voice echoed through the underground chamber. They think their violence has broken us. They are wrong. We are the elder races. We have ruled this galaxy for 1,000,000 years. We will not bow to primitives who learned space travel yesterday. His followers murmured agreement. The other council races have grown weak, Veth continued. They talk of peace. They talk of negotiation. They forget that peace comes only through strength. We will remind them. We will gather our forces. We will strike the humans where they are weakest. And we will show the galaxy that the old order still has teeth. Cheers filled the chamber. Veth smiled. It had been a long time since he smiled. But he believed again. The humans were strong, yes? But they were also spread thin. Their fleets covered 1,000,000 light-years of space. They could not protect everything. One good strike. One demonstration of power. That was all he needed to rally the galaxy against the human invaders. He did not know that his communication had been intercepted. He did not know that human intelligence was closing in. He did not know that his hiding place would be found. He did not know that Ji-Woo Han was coming. 3 weeks later, Ji-Woo's strike team reached the dead moon. They came in on silent ships, landing in darkness on the far side of the moon. They moved on foot across the lifeless surface. Following signals to the underground base, the Vethrian guards never saw them coming. Ji-Woo moved through the base like water through cracks. His team followed in perfect formation. They used stun weapons when they could and lethal force when they had to. Room by room, corridor by corridor, they cleared the facility. They found Counselor Veth in his command center. He was alone. His guards were stunned or dead. His followers were captured. His great plan had lasted exactly 3 weeks. The old Raytheon looked at Ji-Woo with black eyes that still held no fear, only contempt. You are a child, Veth said. Your entire species is children. You have won battles, but you will lose the war. History always repeats. The weak always fall to the strong. Ji-Woo walked closer. He was carrying the photograph of his family. He held it up so Veth could see. Do you know who these people are? Ji-Woo asked. Veth did not answer. They were at Station Varys. My mother. My father. My sister. She was 8 years old. She wanted to be a doctor so she could help people. Ji-Woo's voice remained calm, steady. That was what made it terrifying. You raised your hand. You ordered their deaths. You burned their bodies like garbage. And then you went home and drank wine and forgot about them? Veth still said nothing. I could kill you now. I want to kill you now. My hand wants to move to my weapon and end your life in this room. Gu put the photograph away, but I will not, because we are not like you. We do not murder the helpless. We do not forget that every life has value, even the lives of monsters. You will stand trial. You will face justice. And you will spend the rest of your days remembering what you did. He turned to his team. Take him. Careful with his old bones. We need him alive. As they dragged Veth away, the old Raytheon finally spoke again. You think this is over? You think capturing me ends anything? There will be others. There will always be those who know that humans are a threat. You cannot kill an idea. Ji Woo stopped walking. He looked back at Veth with eyes that had seen too much death. You are right, he said. We cannot kill an idea, but we can replace it with a better one. And the idea we are teaching is simple. Human blood has a price. Those who pay it will regret it forever. He walked away into the darkness. Behind him, Counselor Veth was silent at last. 1 year after the massacre at Station Varus, the war was over. The Galactic Council existed only in name. Their fleets were gone. Their infrastructure was dust. Their populations had seen their leaders humiliated and their power broken. 12 ancient civilizations that had ruled the stars for a million years now waited to learn their fate. From a species that had joined them less than 50 years ago, the human fleets surrounded the Rethian homeworld. 10,000 ships hung in the black sky like a crown of thorns. Their weapons were charged. Their commanders waited for orders. One word from General Ming-Yi. Oh, and the planet below would burn? President Sira Lim stood in the command center on Earth, watching the live feed from the fleet. Around her stood the people who had led humanity through this war. Admiral Tai-Ho Shin, Engineer Hyunhwa Beek, Captain Yoon Moon, Dr. Unikong. General Min-Jio appeared on screen, waiting. We have them, Min-Ji said. Every council leader is either captured or trapped on their homeworlds. Counselor Veth is in custody. His followers are broken. The war is won, and what do you recommend we do now? Sira asked. Min-Ji was quiet for a long moment. She had led armies for 30 years. She had destroyed more enemy ships than she could count. She had never lost a battle. But this decision was not about battle. We have the power to end them, she said finally. Every council race, we could destroy their homeworlds. We could scatter their populations. We could make sure they never threaten us again, could we? Sira asked. Our weapons are ready. Our ships are in position. One order, and the Rethian race ends today. Another order, and the rest follow. The room was silent. Everyone understood what Min-Ji was really saying. They had the power to commit genocide. They had the power to become the monsters the Council had always feared they were. Dr. Unikong stepped forward. She had changed in the past year. Her face was older. Her eyes carried weight they had not carried before. She had testified at trial after trial, telling her story over and over, making sure the galaxy understood what the Council had done. But she had also done something else. She had talked to the survivors, the families of those who died at Varus, the soldiers who fought in the war, the civilians who lost everything. She had listened to their grief and their anger and their hope. She asked. Sira nodded. Why? UNA looked at the screen showing the Rathian homeworld. Billions of beings lived on that planet. Children who had never hurt anyone. Parents who had never voted for massacre. People who were just trying to live their lives. I was there, Una said. I watched 3,000 people die. I heard their screams. I hid in a medical pod while guards walked through the bodies, shooting anyone who still breathed. I have more reason to want revenge than almost anyone. She paused. But I have been thinking about what the dead would want. Captain Doyen Park, the scientists, the families, the children. They did not go to Station Varus to make war. They went to make peace. They believed that humans and aliens could live together. They believed that understanding was possible. She turned to face Sarah directly. If we destroy the Rethian homeworld, we prove the Council right. We prove that humans are exactly what they feared, monsters who cannot be reasoned with, who answer everything with violence, who destroy anyone who threatens them. We become the thing they were trying to prevent. Yuna's voice grew stronger. But if we show mercy, we prove something else. We prove that humans are not monsters. We prove that we can win a war and choose not to destroy our enemies. We prove that we are worthy of leading the galaxy, not because we are the strongest, but because we are the wisest. She stepped back. The dead at Varus wanted peace. I believe we should give them peace. The room remained silent. Everyone looked at President Sira Lim. Sira thought about the year that had passed. She thought about the rage that had filled her when she first saw the massacre footage. She thought about the cold satisfaction she had felt when human ships began their strikes. She thought about the people who had died on both sides of this war. She thought about her daughter, who was 5 years old and did not understand why her mother worked such long hours. She thought about what kind of galaxy her daughter would grow up in. General Sira said finally, "Stand down the fleet. We will not destroy the Raytheon homeworld." Minji nodded. She looked relieved. However, Sira continued, "There must be consequences. The Council cannot simply apologize and continue as before. The beings who ordered the massacre must pay." Yes. "What do you have in mind?" Sira explained her plan. 3 days later, Councillor Veth and every official who had voted for the Varys massacre were brought to Station Varys in chains. They were not executed. They were not imprisoned in dark cells. They were given a different sentence. They would spend the rest of their lives at Station Varys. They would maintain the memorial that humanity had built there. They would clean the halls where human blood had been shed. Every day, they would recite the names of the 3,000 who died. Every night, they would sleep in rooms surrounded by photographs of the victims. They would remember forever. Councillor Veth stood in the hall where he had raised his hand 1 year ago. The walls were covered with faces now, human faces. Young and old, men and women and children. Each face had a name beneath it. Each name had a story. A human guard handed Veth a cleaning tool. Yes. This is where Captain Do-Yeon Park died. You will keep this floor clean. You will do it every day until you die. And when you die, someone else will take your place. But the memorial will stand forever. Veth took the tool. His hands were shaking. For the first time in his ancient life, tears ran down his gray face. "Why?" he whispered. "Why not just kill me?" The guard looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Because death is too easy," the guard said. "Death is an ending. This is not an ending. This is a lesson. And you will learn it every day for the rest of your life." The guard walked away. Veth knelt on the floor and began to clean. 5 years later, Ji Woo-han visited Station Varys one last time. He was older now. His hair had gray in it. His face had lines that had not been there before. He had spent the years after the war helping to build the new Galactic Council. It was not easy work. Trust had to be rebuilt. Old wounds had to heal. But progress was being made. He walked through the memorial halls alone. The walls still held the faces of the dead. The floors were still clean. Somewhere in the station, survivors of the old council were still doing their penance. Ji-Woo stopped at a particular spot on the wall. 3 faces looked down at him. His mother, his father, his sister. He had visited them many times over the years. He had talked to them about his life, his work, his marriage. His daughter, who was 3 years old and had her grandmother's smile. "I promised I would make them understand," he said quietly. "I promised I would make sure it never happened again. I think I have kept that promise. Not through revenge, not through destruction. Through something harder." He touched the wall gently. "Through building something better." In the new council chamber, 12 seats remained as before. But now, 1 seat sat higher than the others. The human seat. Every delegate from every species bowed when a human entered the room. Not out of fear, out of respect, out of recognition that humanity had earned its place not just through strength, but through wisdom. The first law of the new council was simple. It was carved into the walls of every government building, on every world of every species. Never shed innocent blood. Never raise your hand against the helpless. Never forget that every life has value, and at the bottom of the carving, 3 words in the human language served as a reminder of what happened when that law was broken. Remember, Station Varys, 1,000 years would pass. Empires would rise and fall. Species would be born and die. But that law would remain. That memorial would stand. And whenever someone thought about harming the innocent, they would remember what happened to the last beings who tried. They would remember the day that councils shed human blood, and they would. Remember how humanity answered? Not with genocide, not with endless war, but with something more powerful than, either with memory, with justice, with mercy that was stronger than hate. The stars continued their slow dance. The galaxy continued its ancient journey through the void. And humanity continued to grow, to learn, to reach for things beyond their grasp. They had been tested. They had not broken. They had not become monsters. They had become something better. They had become worthy of the stars.